So in this question, we are asked to calculate the distance between 2 points P and point Q, of which the coordinates of P is given. This coordinate of P 4,2, and the coordinate of Q is also given. And as we can see from the coordinates, they have two entry, the first entry and second entry. So they are from a two-dimensional coordinate system or the rectangular coordinate system, which just consists of two mutually perpendicular axes, which is the horizontal axis and the y-axis. Is something of this nature. The y-axis and the s-axis. This is a two-dimensional coordinate system. Now, from point P, which is P with the entry of 4,2, the first entry is coming from the s-axis. We call it the s1, and the second entry is coming from y-axis, which we call y1. So in this two-dimensional coordinate system, you can have 2 points P, point Q, and we are just asked to calculate the distance between point P and Q, the distance between point P and Q. And if you have a point on this two-dimensional coordinate system, let's say P, that, as we have said, the first entry is from the x-axis, which we call x1, and the second entry is from the y-axis, which we call y1. The same thing, Q also have two coordinates, 1,6. We will call the first entry S2, and we will call the second entry Y2. Now the formula for distance between 2 points on a Cartesian coordinate system, which we denote by D. The distance between 2 points on a Cartesian coordinate is given by this formula: square root S2 minus S1 square plus Y2 minus Y1 square. Now we already have our values for x2, which is 1. Just plug it into the formula, which is 1 minus 4 square plus y2 is 6 minus 2 square. Now d is equals to square root 1 minus 4 is minus 3 with the square plus 6 minus 2 is 4 with the square. Now d is equals to the square root of the square of minus 3 is 9 plus the square root of the square of 4 is 16, and this will lead us to square root of 9 plus 16, which is 25. So the square root of 25 is 5. Now no unit was attached to these coordinates, so we just say 5 units. So the distance between point P and Q is 5 units. Now one thing you should take clear is that we can use alternatively we can use the coordinates of P, the entries of P. The first one to be x2 and the other one to be what? y2, and alternatively you can use this one to be x1 and y1. If you still plug it into the formula, this formula, you will still arrive at the answer that the distance between point P and Q is 5 units. Now we have another question between the distance between point P and Q, but this time the coordinate of P has three entry 2, 0, 5, and the coordinate of Q has three entries 3, -2, 1. So since they all have three entries, it shows they are from a three-dimensional coordinate system or a keyboard coordinate system. So you can to solve the distance between P and Q, you can call the first entry, whichever one you like. Let's take the Q1, the first entry for Q to be x1, and the next entry to be y1, the next entry to be what, z1, and the same thing for point P. Take the first entry to be x2, the next entry to be y2, and the last entry to be z2. For a three-dimensional coordinate system, the formula for calculating the distance between 2 points, which we will still denote as d, is given by this formula: the square root of x2 minus x1 square plus y2 minus y1 square plus z2 minus z1 square. Now plugging the values into this formula, we have that x2 is 2 minus 3 square plus y2 is 0 minus y1 is -2, so you have double minus square plus z2 is 5 minus z1 is 1 square. Now d is equals to square root 2 minus 3 is -1 square plus 0 minus -2 will lead to 2 square plus 5 minus 1 is 4 with your square. Then we move on. D is equals to square root -1 square, which is -1 times -1, which is 1. Just know that anytime you are squaring a negative number, you always end up with a positive number. -1 square is 1, which is -1 minus 1, plus 2 square is 4, and 4 square, which is 4 times 4, is 16. Now when you add this up, the numbers beneath the square roots, you have 21. Now the square root of 21 is 4.58 approximately. The unit is attached to this entry, so just write unit. So it's not hard. When you follow the formula, you pick your entries in your coordinates. They are usually x1, y1, and z1. And q2, the entry will be x2, x2, y2 and z2. You plug it into the formula, and earlier on we said if you use it alternatively